Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 2 of Squid Games. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, first off, we immediately got answers to the question I had, wondering what they did with the bodies. Whether they put people's bodies out there and made it seem like it was an accident. It's like, nah, they straight up, it seems like they cremate the bodies. We see at least one box. There was at least someone still alive after the red light, green light game, and they just nailed the box shut. It's like, you're not dead, you will be, if you don't suffocate first, but most likely you're going to die from us cremating your body. So I guess they're not even bothering with them, because these are people that won't be too missed. And because like my thought was like, that could also fit with the narrative of like, right, these are people heavily in debt, every single one of them. So the thought could be that, hey, maybe they killed themselves somewhere just because. I mean, the sad thing is, that's not too out of the realm of possibility of like someone being in excruciating debt, killing themselves. That's a sad, like, no, that is somewhat in the realm of possibility, sadly. So maybe that's how they could justify it, especially because it's like, it's a few people here and there, especially people who have no connection to each other. Some people go missing here and there. They're not directly connected to you. They're strangers to each other. So it's not like, oh, these is like two people from the same family. Like, no, they pick their people probably specifically based on the area they live in. They probably try not to get too many people from the same area. So it's probably a lot easier to cover up. I mean, this is a full, like, a lot of money, like, operation. So they probably have fine-tuned this. Like, who knows how long they've been doing it too, and it's just been like secretly out, because probably isn't the first round of it. Like, who knows, like, this could be around 500, and they could have been doing this for the past, I don't know, like 10 plus years for all we know. Maybe that's something we'll get into over the course of the season. But in the aftermath of it, it's just, Jin-hoon thanking Song-woo as well as Ali, because we end up learning his name later on, for helping him. It's just like, yeah. And now it's a conversation of like, right, well, you all passed the game, and just like a few people at a time just start going like, please let us go, please let us go. And everyone's begging. And it's like, all right, shut up. Rule number one, the clause, you have to play. There's no getting around it. 2, if a player refuses to play, they get eliminated. Everyone that died, it's like, yeah, like, we're not trying to hurt you. Because somebody been like, okay, we'll pay off our debt. It's like, no. We're not about collecting your debt. Like, you came to us. You wanted money. It's a game. It's like a game where people end up dead. It's like, yes. But then then Song-woo points out the third clause. If a majority of people vote, they can cancel out the game. I thought it was the respective rounds of the game. So, like, obviously they have to play 6 games. I thought it was like, oh, like, you get to, like, null, like, one of the games or something. I knew there'd be ramifications. It's like, no, you can quit the entire thing. And then they broke it down. It's like, okay, you want to, that's fine. But, because the number was crazy. We went from 456 to 201. They made it clear. 255 people are dead. It's like, over half this squad is gone. That's wild. In just the first game alone too. So like the eliminations for this is nuts, especially for people who don't know what's what, which we'll kind of get into that later on. But basically everyone participating in this game comes in with like basically every character's got like a piggy bank. They are a piggy bank that their lives are worth 100 million won. So because there are 255 people that were killed, the total pool of money is 25.5 billion. In total, the grand prize for everything is 45.6 billion. It's a lot of freaking money. I brought it up last episode. I could never remember the trend, the exchange rate, even to like US dollars, because I know the exchange rate from any currency to another currency is wild. I've only know the somewhat approximate estimation is because of like manhwa I've read that kind of included that. It's like translator notes. But I want to say, I still didn't look into it, but I want to say it's like 3 zeros. Like basically you have to knock off 3 zeros, I think, roughly speaking. So it's like 4, currently it's like 20, what was it, it was 25.5 billion is like what the prize money was at that time, but I want to say that's 25.5 million. I could be wrong. And even then, like I said, I think it's a, you know, an estimate of like you drop off the zeros, but even then it's not a clean like exchange rate. Cause like, for example, like I think like 10 million would be like what, 10,000, I think maybe I'm wrong. I'd be right. But you jump like, it's not going to be like an even number because it's going to be like odd. It's like, oh, it's going to be like, it's going to be more like, oh, $9,943 or something like that. It's not an exact time exchange rate, and I could still be like getting the numbers wrong. So do forgive me. Like I said, I'm basing this on things I read that were like rough translated numbers and like ones that I read in the past. So I still could be like getting this wrong, the exchange rate, because because it's not a 1-for-1. But regardless, either way, whether you put that in won, whether you put that in US dollars, could have kind of put in perspective for the US dollars. But it's like, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, dude. So, and especially for them, everyone there, they're all in crippling debt. That money is enough to get them out of debt and more. Like, they can get out of debt, they can be in the positive, and have enough to kind of live whatever life they want. That's a lot. That's life-changing money for people in their respective situations. So now it comes down to, all right, if you want to bail out, and the interesting thing too is like, if you cancel this, every one of those victims, their family gets the 100 and that pulled 25 bill. Each one of those respected people, their families will get an anonymous like 100 million won. So you have a choice. And I love how they did it in reverse. It's like, first up, 4, 5, 6, come vote. And you're like, oh boy. I was like, our boy Ji-hoon is going to be the one that sets the tone. And I'm like, all right. He goes, no, don't continue. And so, and I love it. It's like one at a time. And so it's not anonymous voting. You see how everyone votes. Like Ali and, we know Ali and one, what is it? 110, the mafia, the gangster dude, he votes no. We know 67, her and Sung-woo vote yes. But dude, it was an even split. Like, a lot of times those numbers were never too far from each other. Sometimes they were 1 away from each other. Other times they were 3. It was getting close to it. And the moment we got to 100, like, I knew it when we were getting down to it. I was like, well, we know who the last person that's going to vote is. It's going to be number 1. It's going to be the old man. And the moment it got to 100 to 100, I was like, I knew it. It comes down to him. I was so surprised with him voting no. Because even Ji-hoon was thinking about it, like, he told me he has a tumor. Like, we saw how excited he was, like, on that thing. I was like, oh, he's going to vote yes. And when he voted no, I was like, oh, I was actually surprised. I was like, yep, like, the moment he votes yes, here we go. But I didn't expect, and I think that's actually perfect for the story, because it's going to motivate the characters even more. Because it's like, right, you know what the dangers is. Despite knowing what the dangers is, a lot of characters decided to go along with it because they were like, yeah, like, our lives are terrible outside. Like, they were making a point of like, yeah, like, our lives are terrible. That's a lot of money that can change a lot for a lot of people, so they're willing to risk it. And when it comes down to like, all right, we're canceling the game, the people are like, no, let whoever wants to go, and we who want to stay, just let us stay and figure it out. But they're like, right, if you ever change your mind, we'll start this up again, and everyone gets released. Ji-hoon gets released with 67, and she was going to leave him behind. She's like, all right, if I cut you loose, will you bother me about the money? And he was like, I swear on my mom's life or whatever. And she's like, all right. And he's like, give me my money. She's like, wow, so that's what your mom's life is to you. And I love how this entire episode is dedicated to showing, like, right, how sucky their lives are, like how terrible the situations they're in. I mean, like, you take Sung-woo, he's in for a lot of money. It's a lot of fraud. He didn't only bet, like, he even said he bet people's future, and it's like, what do you mean? Like, would you invent, like, did you have like a girlfriend or something? It's kind of what Ji-hoon was saying, like, oh, is it like a woman that you're spending all this money? He's like, but not that kind of future. It's like he bet a lot of people's futures. Like, I think like their livelihood was just like, you know, He took, because a lot of people probably came to him with the money that they were saving, like what they had planned for their futures is probably what he meant when he was like, he bet people, like bet the futures is what he was probably referencing. I could be wrong, but it's not just that. Like, even on a personal level, like he could go, like, it's like, you know, Ji-hoon's like, oh, why don't you file bankruptcy and then you won't have to worry about paying it. But it's like, it's not just the money he owes, his family, like he bet his mom's business on it too, so she could lose everything as well. That's why, like, he's watching nearby, but he's not actually going to see his mom. We learn about 67, her circumstances. Because we learned last episode she's from North Korea. So it turns out she's going to visit her little brother later on in the episode. And she's trying to unite her family. Like, she gave her money to a broker who was supposed to make it so that her family could, like, their parents could get here. But that broker bailed, and not only it was probably like a not necessarily a pyramid scheme. Maybe it could have been, but it's simply the fact is he took not only her money but a lot of people's money, and she was never able to find him. No one was, and now she's coming to this new broker who's like, okay, I could get your mom and dad, but it's gonna cost us, because we're gonna have to start the process all over again. We're gonna have to find them, and then if we get them to China, that's gonna be a different price if we want to bring them here to South Korea. If we want to bring them to South Korea because that's where her and her brother are, because she wants to unite their entire family, the entirety will cost $40 million. So she's like, all right, I'll get the money, but it's like, you screwed me over. Like, you recommended that guy to me. Like, so she's like, I will do this. I will get you the money. You screw me over this time, I will rip your throat out. And she made sure before I love that she threw the coffee in Home Dude's face, but didn't like threaten him, and then immediately did the same thing that she did to Ji-hoon and took all the money out of his pocket. Like, she does that so fast. It's like, she's got quite the pickpocket hands. Boss dude, gangster, turns out he pissed off his big boss. Like, doing something like, either like, because he lost all the money to a casino or something like that, and one of his loyal subjects is like, yo, like, we got your back. Like, his plan is like, right, so when this game rolls around again, we'll roll up on them, take all that they got. That way, like, because there's only like one person who's driving, so we go to the spot and take all the money, but his loyal subject screwed him over, because it's like, oh, they're coming here, they're going to get your liver and all that stuff. The same thing that Ji-hoon was being threatened with in the first episode about, like, all right, like, if you don't pay your debt, we're going to come for your, like, organs and stuff in like a month. Same thing for this guy. I love that he was like, the guys are there, and I love him just being like, oh, welcome to Korea, because they're people from the Philippines, because I think that's where a lot of the shit, I'd assume, because like that's where a lot of the shady stuff like he was mixed up in was happening, or at least that's where he lost the money, was in the Philippines. So he's like, oh, welcome to Korea, and he gutted his right hand dude, got the leg, got the back, stabbed him a couple times. The bastard was getting out of the car like, oh, you're so dead, ha ha ha. It's like, laughed, the foot, shoes on the other foot now, because he killed you and he jumped off the bridge into the water, so he's fine. But that's what he wanted to get enough money that he could appease his boss that he screwed over, so that his boss won't be gunning for him anymore. Because it's not just him, like, the boss was sending out everyone, like, no one was going to have any loyalty towards him, because it's like, you pissed off the big boss, and the big boss is ordering us to find you and track you down. So there's that. We meet Ali, who's like trying to go back to his job to get his money, but his boss won't. So his boss is probably on some shady, like, I'm hoarding the money, doing some shady stuff, because he has an envelope, and Ali's like, I just want my money. Because that's so interesting too, because like I said, this isn't just Korean characters. Like, you have a character like 67 who's North Korea, and you have someone like Ali, like, I don't know whether it's just like he lives in Korea, or whether, like, for whatever extenuating circumstances he brought his family to Korea. Like, I don't know what the circumstances are, but it's like, oh, it's interesting that it isn't like you get different people from different situations and different backgrounds living here. And he actually didn't have any money, but obviously, like, Sang-woo gave him like access to his phone so he could call, and then also call his family, and then also he had money to get like home in the first place because of Sang-woo. But I think it's because Sang-woo was like, yeah, I screwed over so many people. The moment he turned his phone back on, it's like, yo, get in contact with us, the police are looking for you. Like, yeah, it's just kind of reality sunk in, and that was the point of, like, they wanted you to feel like, right, you were people that were, it's a reminder of why you got the game, you participate in the game in the first place. It's because you're desperate, you have no other option. So, I mean, especially because Sang-woo, as well as 67, they were already all about this game in the first place. They wanted to continue, and now this just added extra motivation for them to continue. Especially because he was talking to his mom. His mom's like, oh, don't bother buying me something expensive, just like, I just want to see you. And then have detectives immediately stop by afterwards and be like, your son is in some fraudulent stuff. Things are going to be bad when he goes to trial. If he continues avoiding us, it'll get so much worse. He might as well come in and things will slide at least a little better his way. And so for his mom's entire world to get rocked like that, especially being like, oh yeah, I'm so proud of my son, because once again, it's like that would be a disgraceful situation in any culture, but I feel like in the Asian culture that hits even harder. Like that's just kind of like you bring shame upon your entire family with like some not debaucherous, some diabolical, like that's just kind of like the type of thing of like. It's just on a personal level, it breaks his mother's heart to find out that about her son, but also just I think in the grand scheme of the Asian culture, like I'm sure it's just like when like family is so important to find out like someone in your family is terrible like that, like it has to hit even more, So, like I said, it isn't just a Korean thing. Like any person under those circumstances finding out like, wait, my son like financial frauded a lot of people. Like, yes, like these are some serious white collar crimes he's being accused of. So it's like, of course, it would hit in any culture, but I feel like I think it hits a very different way in not just the Korean culture, but Asian culture in general. I think that hearing your son did something like that hits even in a different way. I think similar in many different regards, the same way, but I think it hits a little differently in a very unique way in the Asian culture. I think, but once again, just getting their story. Like Ali tried to get the money, right. Circling back to Ali, his boss ends up like during the struggle ends up getting his fingers crushed in the machine. You're like, Ali grabs the money, takes it, goes home, tells his wife, and take their child and go. But he plans on like, because I guess he just needed the money to like make sure his family was okay and taken care of. But he knew like after that, like police would probably get involved. And so like he needs to get some money that can make him disappear and probably so he can be with his family and they're taken care of and just go wherever they need to go. So there's that. Ji-hoon ends up finding out, like, he couldn't find his mom. Turns out she's in the hospital because she has diabetes. She's been pushing herself, and then, like, everything's okay. It's to the point things are so bad she might lose a leg, so they're going to have to perform surgery, but none of them have any money. Like, and him, like, oh, no, like, insurance will cover it. She's like, what insurance? You canceled the insurance, and you pulled out all the money, so we have none. She's like, I don't even want to argue. You know, it's like, she's basically like, get your mess together, but it's like, right, let's just go home. I don't want to argue, because he feels like, yes, he struggled ever since he lost his job and everything, and we don't know the full circumstances of why he was let go. And then, like, it's just maybe just just terrible luck where, like, his future businesses ended up failing too, so that's why he's just doing a chauffeuring job. But that's why he's looking for a surefire thing, but he keeps gambling away not only his money, his mother's money. So he tries to ask his buddy for money, but his buddy's like, dude, I don't got no money. He ends up running into the old man, player number 1. And it's like, oh, it's kind of destiny that we met. It's like, oh, it's just funny. Like, do you live in this area? He's like, no, like, I'm staying with a friend right now. But Ji-hoon's like, oh, yeah, but I live in this area myself. So it's just funny that we would run into each other, small world. But he talks about going back to the game, because for him, it's like the whole thing of like, right, I don't have much time left. And so he'd rather kind of go out with a bang rather than just, you know, it's like, right, like they said it themselves, it's torture out here. It's just a reminder of just kind of like, at least in that game, it's like, maybe I'll be fortunate and just win it all. But even if I don't, it's better than just like waiting for the clock to tick down for me to die, you know? So it's like, I have a chance of winning it all. And even if I don't win it all, and he's like, how amazing would it be like if I went into this and I won it all, you know? So, but that kind of got Ji-hoon thinking. But what really crossed his mind, first and foremost, I love that he tried to go to police. I mean, that's what you do in this situation. Whether it's a saw, whether it's an escape room, you go to the police in the aftermath of it. And he tried to go to the police, but they're like, are you crazy? You're crazy, dude. And the moment he's like, right, here's the card, call the number. They tried, but like a woman picked up. It's like, oh, did you actually dial the right number? That's what I'm curious, considering like when Ji-hoon tried to call it, it ended up being like, oh, this number no longer exists. So it had to be like either the officer did do that, or the system is set up that the moment they call, like the police get involved in call, because they probably had to deal with this in the past, it goes to some number. And I love the lady's like, because he's like, oh, I want to take part in the game. And the lady's like, what are you calling me at this weird hour, you freaking pervert? Like, what type of games are you talking about? So I'm wondering, did he just dial the wrong number, or did, because I feel like he would have gotten the same response as Ji-hoon did, but it's like it could just be set up that way to make the police not even more invested. Because if it comes up like, oh, this number doesn't exist, then it'll be an issue. Like, it'll be like, there'll be some kind of questions there, even though not a lot, because either way, the police didn't look too much into it, except one cop, what is his name, Joho? It's like detective, and I'm going to butcher it. I think it's like Hwang. I'm butchering it because I don't think I'm not good with Korean names. I will always admit I even struggle with those when I'm reading like manhwa and like webtoons, because I don't know if because a lot of times it's like you don't hear them sound out, you just sound them out yourself. So like his name is like Hwang, which I would say like Wang, but I don't know if that's it, because I think it would be, because I don't think you pronounce the H, or maybe that like because like the H is silent, or maybe it's like Hwang. I don't know. But I think his name is like Jo'o is his first name. Because like I think it's because I'm so used to like, and even Japanese names I still butcher, but I've had more experience because I've read more manga and I've watched more anime than I have like Korean manhwa and animes, I think I've only ever seen technically so far 2 Korean animes, and that's like Tower of God and Noblesse. I think they're the only 2. And even then, some of those names were changed from like their original Korean names to like more Japanese names for whatever reason. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Tangents and all that aside. So it's just like I never hear the name said out loud a lot of times. So I feel, even like Ji-hoon, I feel like because I think some places I was seeing is saying you pronounce it like Ki-hoon, but then like other times it does sound like it's just like Ji-hoon. Or Ji-hoon, like, once again, I'm butchering it, so I do apologize for my terrible pronunciations, but this detective, he's looking for his brother, because his brother went missing. You're like, was his brother one of the people, because he got the card, and so, because the moment he saw the card, he was like, oh, like this guy, like he must have got some whiff of it beforehand, because he goes by his brother's apartment, and it's like, the landlady's like, oh, since you're looking here, she's like, will you be paying his rent? And he's like, well, I'll look in here first, and then I'll pay the rent later. She's like, okay, she's all about it. So, but he finds a card amongst his stuff. Interestingly enough, it's in a box that looks like the same box that they put dead people in. So either that was something like, that's why I'm like, does that mean, was he one of the people that died last episode during the red light, green light game? But what really happened to really set Ji-hoon like on his path is he went to see his ex. And he's saying like he needs money. She's like, really, you're asking me for money? He's like, it's for my mom. My mom was always nice to you. She was always good to you. But it's like, she's like, we don't have any money. We're struggling too. That's why they're probably moving to the U.S. for better opportunities. But it's like, yeah, if my husband finds you here, it's just like, well, can you ask him? She's like, are you serious? You want me to ask him for money? It's like, yeah. And then what am I supposed to tell him when he asks? And lo and behold, hubby comes home. And I guess, because obviously, like, I don't know if that's her stepson or whether that's her actual son with her new husband. Well, because didn't they only get divorced like 3 years ago? So that might be her current husband. That might have been a kid from a different relationship. So that might be, she might be more his stepmom. But obviously, Gi-hoon runs into his daughter and it's just like, oh, I just came here to see her. I'm just going to go. Like, I didn't come here for any particular reason. And the husband steps out and he's like, all right, here's the money. He's like, oh, thank you. And she's like, good. Now take that money. You don't have to pay me back. Just stay away from my family. It's better because obviously your daughter, this is a hard enough thing on her, but we have to move to the U.S. and everything. And it would kind of be better for her if you weren't around or just a reminder. And he attacks her and his daughter sees it and she's like, Dad, why? And he just feels like such a letdown and even says it to the detective. It's like, what makes you think I could help you or anyone? And that's what, it's like, right, trying to make it, get the money so that his daughter wouldn't see him as like how he feels, like see him in such a way and as a loser, be able to help his mom, especially because he's like, blames himself because it's like, right, I'm the reason why things have spiraled out to what they have, so I have to make it up to them. So, and once again, it's like, each one of them gets knocked out, and we see that our detective has followed Ji-hoon in the van, and we also see 67 play the smart move and cover their face because it's like, right, if you all know like what the protocol is going to be, it's like you're going to get gassed. She was prepared for it this time. Now they're all going to be going through, like, we're probably going to go back to the max. He's not going to be the same number he was before. None of them are, But I mean, hell, like Sung-woo was. I'd actually almost skipped over it, but he was like he just sat in the tub. Like I don't know if he was like he was getting super drunk. He was wearing his clothes in the tub, so he was probably eventually going to slip into that tub and drown or like what. Like it's just he was definitely like teetering on that edge of like yeah things aren't going to be good. Like he was probably close to like killing himself type of situation. Whether like he was planning on that in that moment or just the mental state he was in, you could tell it was going to come down to that. So now it becomes a situation of like what happens when they do pick up the game because right, because like the numbers aren't going to be the same. He's not going to be 4, 5, 6 anymore because he wasn't the last person picked up. So the numbers are going to be a little rearranged, but also it's like there's going to be new people as well as returning people from last time, so that's going to be interesting. I'm curious, are the games going to be in the same order? So like if you bail out at any point in time for whatever reason, like you make it to game 3, will the first 1, 2, and 3 always be that? Will it always be red light, green light? But they probably won't because it's like, right, some of you are returning, so we are going, like, I'm also, we're probably going to shift it up because that would give everyone who's been here before an unfair advantage because the point is to make it a even playing field. That's also why they hide their identities because they don't want to like skew anything in anyone's favor if you find out maybe it's people that might be behind those masks, whatever the case may be. So the question is like, are there always a total of 6? Is it the same 6 games? Or are there multiple games that just kind of get recycled in throughout those 6? Like 5 out of the 6 times you do it over and over again. Maybe you bail out each time, but 5 of the 6 times it will be like maybe like 3 of the games are the same and 3 are different. Like I'm just curious how that happens. Like it's a weird reference to make like Mario Party, where it's like, oh, you can have your classic where it's like, yeah, you'll always get bonus stars because of this, and this. Or do you change it around where it's like, right, like it's a random thing that decides what bonus stars you get, like that, that's, it's fascinating. It's definitely going to be interesting to see, but I think the next game is not going to be red light, green light the first game because it would give a lot of that group an unfair advantage. Either way, I'm very excited to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.